Crude is unique because it is not afraid to be nonconformist. A lot of the things that we put out are very rebellious in nature, and I think that's what makes it stand out the most.
So Crude started in 2011. Was living in Austin, Texas, and ended up moving back to Hutchinson. And when I was living in Austin, I was working as a commercial artist. I was painting murals and doing artwork on the side that was my own. And I was submitting stuff to local zines that were in Austin. And when I moved back to Hutchinson, I thought it would be a really great idea to do a local zine. So I started Crude with a couple of friends of mine back in 2011. So I started getting people to submit artwork.
I first got involved when Pat Calvillo and Matt met up with me in I would say April or May of 2011. And they had this idea of doing a DIY zine with just a bunch of art from all of our friends around town and stuff like that. So they asked me if I wanted to help submit and maybe help put the issue together. So that's how it started.
I got involved with Crude back in, when it first started, I was more of a backer. I gave them money to help them produce the magazines.
I've always been really passionate and supported the zine. It's a bunch of my friends that I grew up with that put it out, and I supported them even when I was in Massachusetts, and just really loved how fearless it was and how do-it-yourself it was and rebellious it was.
Some inspiration living in Austin. I met a lot of really talented artists. Before then, I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I met a lot of talented artists there as well. And so when I moved to Hutch, I started researching some underground 80s and 90s artists that were doing underground comic books at the time and underground zines. And so I was just inspired by their work.
I've always been a musician since elementary school, an artist. A lot of my family is artists. And then I've got really into website design and graphic design in high school.
I love Andrew Gray as far as photography. I love abstract photography. I love abstract art and things like that. But I think that I mostly am inspired by my friends and the people around me.
With Crude Media right now, I handle the audio side of stuff. And just being younger, my grandpa's bass guitar, and I was just sitting up in my room gathering dust, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn how to play this thing. So I I'm a self-taught musician. I use that very loosely.
Me and Matt Jeanette, he was one of the artists that started it. We have a graffiti background, and as artists, we really enjoy the anonymous way about doing graffiti, is that you do all this work and you don't really take credit for. So with Crew, that was the main idea, was just putting stuff out and seeing if if people liked it, they liked it. If they didn't, they didn't. But we really just, we wanted to produce something. There's a lot of talent. I grew up with a lot of talented people, and a lot of talented artists, and so this was the best way to showcase their artwork in a format that wasn't happening at the time, especially in Hutchinson.
Between 2012 and 2016, I put maybe 1 or 2 issues out a year. It's just a back burner thing. I was doing more videos and at the time, and just learning other stuff. But the zine's always been there, and so then when more people want to get involved, like Gigo, then it started back up again, and it revived it.
I think with everything that you do, there's a fear of the follow-through not happening. So I think one of the main things was getting this up and running and then it not becoming something. So one of the main fears that I always had was, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna try to stick to it and try to get other people into it and get them inspired to make artwork. And so that was my main fear, I think, is that, and just overall, not having anybody care about it. You wanna, produce something that people actually like and, I guess submit to.
Prior to moving here, I was living in Kansas City as a creative development person in the corporate world. So I worked really closely with franchise businesses to create their content for their social media platforms. Unfortunately, the position was dissolved due to COVID, so I was forced to move back to my beautiful hometown. And I really loved what I did because, I love the idea of creating content and being able to hear someone's story and, their brand story and kind of tell a story visually with it and things like that. So I know that I wanted to stay within that realm.
It was, it's primarily focused on the zine, so we were just getting in submissions and trying to make a deadline and trying to put things together. But as you start, and we're still giving copies out for free, but making that transition, we're trying to just be more in depth and we're trying to put all of our hard work and like I said, learned experiences together to actually form something that's bigger than just a little magazine that we put out for fun.
I was offered to work on some production things that Emilio had that he creates, that he directs. Good Night Hutch, I'm actually the host of it. So it's like a late night talk show. It kind of started from there. I'd never been involved in any type of production like that before, but I've always wanted to get involved. And he saw something in me that kind of just sparked my interest to finally go after something that I've always wanted to do.
And directing's like one thing I've been kind of learning. Like directing and writing for anything like stories and scripts and stuff is I'm still very new at it, but it's very fun to do. So I'm excited to learn more about that.
I've been excited to working on these First Avenue sessions for musicians. Idea behind that is that, there's no outlet. Once again, there's no outlet here in Kansas, and people leave looking for it. So trying to create something because there's tons of talented artists here.
I'm really stoked about First Avenue Sessions. It's something that my partners created to allow for local musicians to come in and do live performances that follow COVID guidelines, and to for a couple of reasons, to give the artists place to perform again, because a lot of artists haven't been able to even pick up their instruments since COVID, and also be able to compensate them for their work has been something that I'm really, really excited for in the future.
I hope that it just keeps growing, and I hope it expands. I hope it goes to different cities. I hope that one day they'll have their own channel. I know there's a lot of different venues for multimedia production, and there's YouTube and there's Vimeo and there's other places that you can get your work showcased at. And I just hope that one day maybe it could be a multimedia channel where it's a throwback to when we grew up with live action, animation, and just being this overall showcase of musicians and poets and comedians and artists. So I think that's my hope for it. I hope it just keeps growing.